the north of Ireland should hold a referendum on leaving the United Kingdom and joining the south of Ireland as soon as possible. So says Michelle O'Neill, the new leader of Sinn Fein, one of the two main parties here in Stormont, the home of Northern Ireland's elected assembly. O'Neill believes Brexit will be a disaster for the economy and Ireland, and that Irish unity could be the solution. The effects of Brexit could be very dramatic for Northern Ireland. Theresa May has not explicitly ruled out a hard border with the South under the coming new arrangements, though she has said she doesn't want that. If they do build a barrier or wall of whatever sort, it would mean the north of Ireland would be even more isolated from the south. The province, however, faces being taken out of the EU with the rest of the UK and isolated still further from mainland Europe. Michelle O'Neill, who replaced Martin McGuinness as Sinn Féin's leader in the Northern Ireland Assembly in January, said, "A referendum on Irish unity has to happen as soon as possible." McGuinness himself, who passed away recently, fully backed Irish unity. A referendum on a united Ireland was included in the Good Friday Agreement, and the British government is committed to accepting the result of such a referendum. Though the current British Prime Minister has already rejected Sinn Féin's call for such a poll, she might not be able to resist a major call for such a vote. What would a United Kingdom without the north of Ireland be like? And why do people want to leave the UK? Simple questions with important answers. Sinn Féin's recent calls for the north of Ireland to leave the UK have been prompted by Brexit. How does the public here in Belfast feel about this? We came here to ask them.
Not really, no. Just whatever best for the general population of Northern Ireland. I think that's the best way to go about it. Yeah. No, not really a big topic.
Northern Ireland is part of the UK, so it has to follow Westminster policies and laws. But then the people of Northern Ireland voted to stay in the EU, so that has to be taken into consideration as well when negotiations happen. I think that's my opinion.
Well, I actually live in a border town down in South Armagh, and I think that the impact of Brexit is just, it hasn't even been thought about in mainland UK. I know it is something that I would support, and I do think we will be better off, particularly given the level of growth in Ireland's economy right now, because just my opinion of it all is that in Westminster they really don't have any regard for us. They don't seem to be considering the impact. So I would think it would be better, but it could only happen if it was to benefit everyone, nationalists and unionists, and if it was inclusive for everyone here.
I don't think that would be good or right to do that, because Northern Ireland is part of the UK, and whatever the UK's decision is going to definitely affect Northern Ireland positively or negatively.
If they left, it would be a shame if they left the United Kingdom. But I feel the people in Northern Ireland would need to have all the facts and all the information before they started thinking about doing something like that.
I think the agenda, in any sense, when you're coming out of Brexit, I think there is no clear definition of what is the benefits to that. I think facts are key for most people, certainly from where I come from in Scotland. We have another dimension where to come out of one union to join another one seems to confuse a lot of people. And I think that a lot of people's mistrust of politicians because of their own agendas does tend to kind of...
I think Northern Ireland's position should be reconsidered. I mean, there's also the hard border to take into effect. It's going to affect a lot of people, working in the south, isn't it? And other things too, travel abroad maybe. I don't know, but I think there should be another referendum, definitely, because most people from here agreed to stay in the UK. That's all I have to say.
Sinn Féin's national project is to bring about the circumstances for Irish national reunification and independence on the basis of an agreed united Ireland. The reality is that has been held back as a result of the partition of Ireland, and that's fundamentally undemocratic and has held back the development of Irish society in every respect. Brexit represents a clear reminder about the central contradiction at the heart of Irish politics and society, that being the partition of Ireland, in itself fundamentally anti-democratic, and the Brexit decision being fundamentally anti-democratic for the people here in the north of Ireland who voted overwhelmingly to remain within the EU and whose democratic preference is now being subverted as a result of this decision which is being imposed upon us by the British government?
Initially I would feel happy about it. I think most people in the north obviously voted to remain, and we want to remain within the EU because it suits the people here. Even the UK would probably be beneficial to us as well. We've campaigned for United Ireland. I'd want to see United Ireland in my lifetime, so I don't think there'd be many people upset at the prospect of leaving the United Kingdom. It'd be more beneficial to the people on this island.
In the public's view, here in central Belfast, what would a united kingdom without Northern Ireland look like?
I honestly don't really know. It's up to the politicians to decide the best way about that. Just whatever better for our economy and the lower grades of people in Northern Ireland, I'd say, the working population. Yeah.
Sure, it would damage it economically and diversity as well. I mean, it's all one nation, but if that's what the people of Northern Ireland wanted, then I guess what effect it would have to the rest of the UK it wouldn't be a matter anymore because the will of the people would have materialised.
Well, I do think it would be slightly different, but I think for the United Kingdom, mainland UK, I find myself whenever I go over, I used to work in London and a lot of people didn't even know Northern Ireland was a part of the UK, which was very frustrating for me anyway, but I think it will be different and it will be sad for this to happen, but for me personally, I think the way Brexit has happened and the lack of regard for Northern Ireland and Scotland as well that also voted Remain, I think it would probably be for the better.
As an Irish Republican, I want to see the end of the British colonial presence on the island. So for us, we think we can do a better job than what the British have done for the last 800 years in terms of Irish involvement in our country.
Better. I guess ultimately without Northern Ireland, I don't think it's going to change. I don't even think most of the English people are actually going to care that much. I think that Northern Ireland will leave, go off, do its own thing, establish its independence, and I don't think we're going to go back to bloodshed. I just think we're going to have a long debate about this, and it's going to be a 30-year process before there's going to be a Northern Ireland referendum on a united Ireland. I mean, it's going to be a long time before that would even realistically be visible to the general public. But England itself won't miss it. I mean, I don't think, what effect does Northern Ireland really have on London,
No, I'm mostly thinking about the hard border and our relationship with Europe, really. I think that's the most important thing.
I think you have to begin with the question as to what does the United Kingdom, as you describe it, represent. This is one island. Ireland is one country. The colonial history of our island is such that we have been stopped from growing together as a people. We have not prospered economically and politically in the way that other nation states have been given that opportunity as a result of British colonial influence in Ireland. I think you're looking at a complete reconfiguration of political relationships on the basis of Irish reunification taking place, and then the changing character of the United Kingdom as you describe it, in circumstances where clearly the British state is now in constitutional and political meltdown. What will be the final outcome, I think, will be determined by the decisions that people in Scotland make, and clearly then, as ought to be the case, the decisions which English people make for themselves on the basis of their right to self-determination as well. But one thing is for sure, it will be all change.
To be honest, my own personal view is that I don't think it matters. As I says, I would personally want a united Ireland, so I don't really care what a United Kingdom would look like without the North in it, because I'm more concerned about what a United Ireland would look like and what the future looks like for the likes of myself and maybe my future children or my brothers and sisters. So it's more about the future and what's that going to look like.
How does the public feel about the idea of Irish reunification?
There's people here that almost divided, like 50-50 opinion on either joining or becoming an independent country or staying part of the UK. So I think it's going to divide people, and I don't think that that's a good idea.
Yeah, well, for me, I certainly feel Irish. I've grown up on the border where it's pretty much invisible anyway. And with the implications of Brexit coming in, it's going to be more difficult for people living along border regions. So I personally would love the idea of a United Ireland, but again, I can't stress enough that it has to be beneficial for everyone, all sides, nationalists and unionists. And we've come through a lot in the past, and we can't just make any rash decisions right now either.
United Ireland is going to be nice. Like, I'm an international student, and even though Dublin is part of Ireland, I need a visa to go there, which is not good. If it is going to merge, then I'm going to be happy because I will no longer need a visa to go to Dublin. I could just pop by anyhow. But now I need a visa. If I'm going to travel, I need a transit visa. It's going to be positive for me because I'll benefit from it. But I don't see that happening anytime soon. Maybe in the nearest future.
That's my political objective, has been for the last number of years. Both as a military activist and a political activist here in Belfast. So we're looking forward to the day when that Irish reunification and then the partition will come.
Oh, I'm very pro, very pro. You know, people have been fighting for Irish independence for generations, and for generations, you know, they've been fighting, and it's a constant state of negotiation and battle and so on. But Northern Ireland really represents, I feel personally, Northern Ireland really right now represents what the world needs, because this is one of the few countries in the world that is so marred in bloodshed, yet is actually the only country to have built and established a peace and then seen where that peace develops.
It'll provide everyone on the island of Ireland, all sections of Irish society, with an unprecedented opportunity to reimagine and design a new future for all of our people. And in the context here of the North, with the legacy of the war and the conflict, albeit that we're now in a new political dispensation, we still live with huge fault lines, huge levels of communal division, historic animosity between different sides within our community. And the prospect of a united Ireland opens up the new scenario of a conversation about how collectively we can change the future constitutionally, politically, and economically in the interests of all of our people. So a united Ireland needs to be seen in the context of an unparalleled opportunity to discuss what our future can and should be.
Well, first of all, there's politically, there's economic sense in it. I believe there's case studies done there to prove the economic viability of United Ireland. Two different healthcare systems doesn't make sense. I mean, you've people travelling 2 hours and paying thousands of pounds to go down 2 hours down the road. It makes absolutely no sense. So for such a small island with such a small economy, it doesn't make sense is the only thing I can say, like economically, politically, socially even as well.
Northern Ireland voted to remain in the EU last year. The result was 56% for Remain compared to 44% Leave. An Ipsos Mori poll last year also showed 22% of voters supported a united Ireland, while 63% wanted to stay in the UK. However, more recently, the party most in favour of leaving the UK and reuniting Ireland, that's Sinn Fein, did very well in elections, winning 27 seats in the Northern Ireland Assembly, just one behind the largest party, the unionist DUP. Scottish leaders have called for a second independence referendum, while Republican leaders in Northern Ireland talk of leaving the UK, and there are even calls for Welsh independence. Why do people in all these nations want to leave the United Kingdom?
They obviously care enough about it, they're obviously informed about it, But personally, I'm not one of those people, so they must have strong feelings towards it.
I think people are dissatisfied with Westminster policies and laws and decisions being made in London, so far away from where they live and the matters that affect them most. So I think just people want more freedom to make decisions for their own matters.
So I think the Conservative Party really need to have a look at how they're approaching this, and instead of just saying this is what we're doing and that's it, I think they're making things worse for themselves by not listening to those who may be impacted differently from England itself. And I feel that the growth in British nationalism is not benefiting anyone in this country. We have our own identity politics already going on.
The Northern Ireland might not be strong enough to stand on its own, except if they probably merge with Dublin, which is Ireland as a whole, then they could be able to stand as one nation together. But Northern Ireland standing on its own, no, that might not be possible. I don't think they have enough resources to do that.
Northern Ireland again would need to have all the information. People would need to really study this and find out if it would benefit them to be part of Ireland or part of the United Kingdom.
Because England is so bad at ruling us with the Celtic nations, are now saying we've had enough. So we're in favour of the Scottish referendum. We're hoping for a second referendum here, probably after about an 18-month, 2-year run-in. The other 27 countries in Europe are going to have an opinion or a vote or some sort of say on what happens to the border. Why not in Ireland? Why not another referendum?
I think the reason why a lot of these sort of movements are springing up is that people are so desperate for change that the only way they see it happening is to do the protest vote, which is why, that's why Brexit happened. That's why in Northern Ireland, in West Belfast, we had Jerry Carroll was elected with 8,000 votes in not the last election, but the previous election. And that was a protest vote. And he still held his seat.
I think you begin the answer to that question by asking whether, as you describe it, the United Kingdom as an entity, constitutionally and politically and institutionally, serve the needs of people here in this part of Ireland, which is partitioned and remains under British jurisdiction, whether it serves the needs and the interests of people living in Scotland. Does it indeed serve the interests of people living in Wales? And from our perspective, clearly, the future is best served on the basis of Irish independence and the emergence of an agreed united Ireland, because that gives Irish people the opportunity to self-determine their future. And similarly, while I wouldn't attempt to speak on behalf of people in Scotland, they clearly recognise that the legacy of British jurisdiction in Scotland has less than well served the needs of people living in that country. So this is about self-determination, this is about independence, and it is about an opportunity to create new spaces for new conversations in order to allow us all to chart our independent pathways.
Well, I can't speak for Scotland or Wales, I can only speak as an Irish person. British power, British rule, again, didn't work on this island. You just have to look at the Conservatives that are in power now. I think they got like 0.1% of the vote in the north here. They're not democratically elected here. They don't reflect the wishes of the people here. They're implementing austerity measures that aren't welcome here and don't work here. So I can see why people in the north wouldn't want to be a part of that, especially that type of Britain and that type of UK, because I don't want to say that they don't care about our interests, but they don't work for our interests and they don't benefit the people here.
Is the public worried about the future of the UK if Scotland and Northern Ireland leave Britain when the UK leaves the European Union, and why?
Sure, yeah. It's going to diminish the UK as a country and as a leading power in research and science and trade. But if that's what the will of the people is, then everyone has to respect that, I think.
Well, I'm mostly concerned from the perspective of being from Northern Ireland, and I worry about any possibility of a conflict returning. I think that we're quite a fragile state, and obviously the peace process, it has been fragile. We're coming up to 20 years on from the Good Friday Agreement. We don't even have an assembly right now, We can't seem to get our government to work or even represent us in mainland UK. So no, I am worried specifically about Northern Ireland, but I worry about the amount of people I know in mainland UK who didn't want this decision. I have a lot of family living in London and they just can't believe this is happening. So I would question the motives of those who ran the Leave campaign, a lot of the things that were said throughout the campaign, and whether this is the best decision for the UK. There have been times in the past where there's been more than one referendum, and I don't think that that's what we necessarily have to do, but we could have just made this that it was an agreement where it was beneficial for everyone, not just more about pride, which is what it seems to be at the minute.
Yeah, I'm worried about both countries leaving the United Kingdom and about how they would survive being separate from the United Kingdom, because they are, as far as I'm concerned, doing really well at the moment. Belfast is a great city that's up and coming, and Scotland is a country that is surviving well within the United Kingdom, and I don't think it should come out of the United Kingdom.
I'm more worried about the possibility of the dangers to the peace process and the political process going backwards instead of forwards. We've moved away from militarised borders of the past. We don't want them to return after Brexit. We also have relied heavily on EU subsidies to develop the peace and reconciliation programmes. What happens when they go after Brexit? Or my grandfather was murdered during the conflict. I don't trust the British courts. I would rather have the European Court of Human Rights adjudicate on what they call legacy or dealing with the past rather than the British courts. So all those are possible problems ahead, but the main course of action for me would be a second referendum.
Empires traditionally always fall at a certain point. England's problem is that it overreached itself. It went into the Middle East and thought that if it went into the Middle East, it could solve the Middle East. Nobody's capable of solving the Middle East, and ultimately it created a disconnect with its electorate that has now led to Scotland doesn't want to be a part of it, Northern Ireland doesn't want to be a part of it. You know, the mask has come off the empire, and people are starting to question, is this something we support? I mean, at the end of the day, yes, the British Empire is going to fall, but you have to kind of think, well, it's your own fault. You voted for the Tories.
I think it would be quite uncertain, and I don't think that helps anyone in this global stage. So I think I'd be more worried certainly about the north of Ireland than Scotland, certainly. But I think England and Wales, I've made it clear that these are nations also that reach out and you know, to Scotland and the north, and it has worked in many ways for many years. So I think there would be disappointment on all sides, but I think certainly Scotland and the north would suffer in the short to medium term.
That's a question, therefore, for people in England. And I think that in circumstances, because let's remember it was a vote largely within South East England, which has driven the momentum to leave the EU. I happen to believe that that has also been distorted by the ideological and the political divisions within the British Conservative Party, which has actually driven an ideological agenda in the direction of leaving the EU. So that in turn has heightened a sense of xenophobia and raised the immigration issue to a point where that became the tipping issue, which forced opinion to take a stance in South East England and in England overall and in some parts of Wales to leave the EU. But that's not representative of where people in Ireland are at on this issue or where people in Scotland are at on this issue. So in circumstances where we see the needs of Irish people being accommodated here in the north of Ireland through, as we have argued for, special designated status and an alternative formula which will serve the needs of people in Scotland, then I think the people in England need to have a big conversation with themselves about how they are going to shape their relationship with the European Union in the future. One thing's for sure, the European Union isn't going anywhere soon. It's going to remain, and there's a need to redesign relationships for those who don't want to be part of the EU with that huge market of 500 million customers.
Well, currently we don't have the United Ireland that I want, so am I worried about the impact that Brexit will have in the north? Massively. It's going to impact here in ways that we probably can't even foresee in terms of students, young people, our community groups, the border communities too. It's going to be a massive impact on our communities.
Brexit means departing from one union, the European Union, That sends a message to the nations of the UK that unions do not have to last forever, whatever the historical relationship between nations has been in the past. So perhaps it's not surprising that Brexit has reignited talk of the breakup of the UK itself. Here in Northern Ireland, the politicians are again debating independence. By breaking away from the EU, it could be that the United Kingdom is breaking up with itself.